Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Central. It's always a delight to have you join us. For the next hours, we're going to be looking at some of the biggest political stories. A lot of breaking news have occurred in the past 24 hours. I will be explaining and having some deep conversations about them this morning. I am Olive Emodi.
I'm Johansson, welcoming you again to Thursday's edition of Breakfast Central. Just as Oliver said, a lot of stories, a lot of breaking news, and a lot of arguments and counter-arguments. We've seen the women throw away their gilly and almost get into the boxing ring because of a particular amount, close to about 1.5 billion naira, where some have said that it's been shared between two persons in the ministry. I'm sure you want to get to know about that story as well. Now, this is one of the biggest stories as well that's trending, and we sincerely must say that it's starting to become worrisome that the ladies or the women who have been put in position to actually handle a particular ministry or ministries are starting to seem like they are falling out of the pecking order. But we'll talk about this and much more. Also, don't forget, the president is set to equally meet with the Nigeria Labour Congress, and we're hoping that the conversation will lead to somewhat a solution. We would find a solution to the nagging situation concerning what Nigerians should actually earn.
Right, indeed. Now, barely 1 week after President Bola Tinubu was sworn in as the chairman of the ECOWAS, the regional bloc, we have had reports that the Court of Justice, the ECOWAS Court of Justice, has found the federal government guilty of, the drama that happened on the 20th of October 2020. ENDSARS, the protest that shook the world as young people in Nigeria had their say and were unfortunately gunned down, something that the Nigerian government for the longest time kept us guessing and gaslighting and making us feel like we didn't see what we saw. But we're going to bring in Dashin Usman once again as we all, in a way, relive the sad incidents that occurred on the 20th of October. Good morning, Dashin. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Olive. Good morning, Joe. It's nice to be here.
Now, if we go back to the 20th of October 2020, the occurrence on that day was an unfortunate one. It was the high point of a few days of protest here in Nigeria against police brutality and against the SARS arm of the police, the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. What we have seen, unfortunately, is that for the past 4 years, there has been proper gaslighting. A number of people asking, did it occur? Did it not happen? Because there was an outright denial of the killing of these young people. Even though there were people who were said to be in prison, even though we all watched the live stream on DJ Switch's Instagram, we heard stories about, oh, it's green screen, it's video manipulation. But we were seeing people dying, we were hearing the gunshots. I was in Lekki at that time and I could hear it, and I remember it was the most heart-wrenching thing I could have experienced. Hearing these gunshots, we were all crying. It was a traumatizing thing. I don't know, this feels like maybe just a little bit of closure. They've been ordered to pay 2 million naira each to the people, to Obianoju Ude and a number of the people who have unfortunately fortunately I would say approached the ECOWAS court. And I don't know if this is justice enough. So, Dashin, Joe, would you say that so far this is considered as justice enough?
Well, Olive, well said. You actually spoke as if, you were there when it happened, and that was the same feeling everyone had. I was back in Abuja, and I watched how everything occurred, and it was really, really sad. Like you said, for the past 4 years, it's been a lot of confusion here and there. Till now, a lot of people are still amiss as to whether it happened or not. And we've seen, so many denials. We've seen, security footages, being manipulated and all that. In fact, I think a few months ago, a report came out that no one died. A few months ago as well, no one is in prison and everything. But we did say that, why are the families of those who were imprisoned, why are they not coming out to speak? Do you understand? But, as you have also said, the ECOWAS court has already ruled 2 million might be kind of little if you ask me. But then I think the punishment kind of fits the crime as it is right now?
Well, 2 million naira for a crime that occurred 4 years ago. The value of 2 million naira 4 years ago isn't the value of 2 million naira now. That's one. Two, the lives of those who have been lost will never be brought back. And three, for example, someone like DJ Switch, who has lost her life. Whilst she's alive, she has lost her life in the sense, being that she's not allowed to be able to live in her country, live with her family members, and just, be able to do the things that she loves to do. She was a DJ and had a thriving career before all of this, and now she's had to go into the wind. It's just a lot of drama, but we'll talk more about this later this morning. Thank you so much, Dashan, for joining us. We'll have you bring us breakfast headlines, but let's share what our top stories are. This morning on Breakfast Central, Reps Women Minister clash over 1.5 billion naira diverted funds. It was a shouting fest.
Supreme Court set to rule on local government autonomy. It's today, and I'm sure the local government chairmen are indeed rubbing their fists and hoping for the better.
Federal government violated ENDSARS protesters' rights, according to the ECOWAS court.
Chief Justice of Nigeria swears in 22 appeal court justices, and we'll bring to you what's on the front pages later today, plus many more. But let's go straight to breakfast headlines with Dashin Usman.
Let's begin breakfast headlines in Nigeria, where the federal government is nearing an agreement on a new national minimum wage, as President Bola Tinubu has invited the organized labor, including the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress, to a meeting at the Aso Villa. A source within the labor leadership, speaking anonymously, disclosed that President Tinubu is keen to resolve the ongoing discussions on the minimum wage and has invited the joint union presidents to the meeting. Protesters have stormed Nigeria's Ministry of Justice headquarters in Abuja, the nation's capital, calling for an end to intimidation of journalists in the country. The demonstration, with the theme "Don't Police My Speech," is advocating for press freedom, decriminalization of journalism, and protection of freedom of speech. Still in West Africa, the leader and an official from one of Guinea's last vocal society groups opposing the ruling junta has been arrested. According to the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution, a pro-democracy movement, Omar Sila and Mamadou Bello Ba, were detained late Tuesday by a group of heavily armed hooded soldiers, some in civilian clothes, in what the group described as a kidnapping. In Southern Africa, tragedy struck near Johannesburg on Wednesday when a minibus taking children to school overturned and burst into flames after being hit by another vehicle, killing 12 children. The driver of the minibus also died, and 7 other children were rushed to the hospital, according to officials in Johannesburg's Gauteng province. In a statement, the Gauteng government said it could not immediately provide the ages of the children, but noted that most were from a primary school typically attended by students aged between 6 and 13. A judge in South Africa ruled that the negligence of 2 officials in Gauteng province was to blame for the deaths of some 140 psychiatric patients who died in 2016 after being moved from hospital to unlicensed facilities. In the tragedy that has gripped the country for years, at least 144 patients died due to pneumonia, dehydration, diarrhea, and food aspiration. Let's head to North Africa, where authorities in Libya say up to 4 in 5 foreigners in the North African country are undocumented, and hosting migrants hoping to reach Europe have become unacceptable. Libya, about 300 kilometers from Italy, is a key departure point for migrants, primarily from sub-Saharan African countries, risking perilous Mediterranean sea journeys to seek a better life in Europe. But with mounting efforts by the European Union to curb irregular migration, many have found themselves stranded in Libya. According to Libya's Interior Minister, Imad Trabelsi, the country has turned from a transit country to a country of settlement and undocumented migrants don't pay taxes. And that's all on breakfast headlines. Now it's back to Joe and Olive.
Thank you so much, Dashin Usman. I think one of the stories to look forward to is that took place in Abuja, the picketing, where there's a protest against the silencing of journalists that's suddenly taking place in Nigeria. It's good to let the government know, and also good to let the public know that journalists need freedom of speech. It is indeed not a crime to engage in freedom of speech. It's part of the Constitution, and we need to talk. We need to speak when we see things not going wrong, or when we see things going wrong. So either way, we just need to talk about it, and that's exactly what I would say makes it, for me, highlights the importance, also being a journalist as well. So don't forget too that recently we've also seen journalists being kidnapped. That's not a conversation to have, because it seems like it's just gagging the media. The media needs to be gagged. Nobody needs to talk anymore. But then we need to talk, because if we do not talk, how do Nigerians get to hear the story?
Exactly.
How do we then point out what the corrections need to be, who's going wrong, who's going right, and so on? I don't know what your thoughts are, Dashin, as well.
Okay, Dashin, go ahead first.
I was actually going to say that, journalists have been saddled or tasked with the responsibility of asking the hard questions on behalf of Nigerians. So, if democracy is to run or reign supreme in Nigeria, they should be allowed to talk. They should be allowed to ask those hard questions, and they should be allowed to hold the leadership and also the government accountable.
And I agree with everything that the both of you have said. And just to, reiterate what you've said in different words, to say that journalists are called the fourth estate of the realm for a reason. Journalists are the ones who hold the government to account, who are the middle, the bridge between the government and the governed, being that voice for the governed, being that conscience checkmate for the government. The same way that the government has the different arms that have been put there for the separation of powers, for each arm to checkmate the other, so that power doesn't reign freely in a way that it can be abused. It's the way that journalists have been put here to serve as a check, a guide, to serve as a voice that amplifies the plight of the people, and also to just be there as that middle ground. And it's unfair what is happening. I'm going to use this opportunity once again to speak about the kidnap of the two journalists in Kaduna. Two journalists were kidnapped in Kaduna alongside their wives and their children. Now, one of these journalists' wife was dropped along the road because of her poor health. But ever since the kidnap, they've been silent. They haven't heard from the abductors. And law enforcement agencies are being called upon to swiftly intervene and ensure that these journalists and their families are returned to their home. It's unfortunate that they were kidnapped from their home. I always say that home is a place where you go to and you rest from all the troubles of the world. But it's unfortunate now that we're seeing that the definition of home is changing. You're in your house, and where you would call home, ought to be your safe haven, is a place that the bandits and the kidnappers and these unknown gunmen will come and take you away. So insecurity is a problem, but also it's important that we do all that we can not to stifle the freedom that the media has and the journalist has. Dashin, we'll see you again at 9 a.m.
Thank you, Olive.
All right, we have our top stories this morning, which we'll be looking at after this break.
Thanks for staying with us here on Breakfast Central. About 22 judicial officers have been elevated to the Court of Appeal, increasing the current number to 88 justices. Some Nigerians say this will improve the speedy dispensation of justice, fundamental to restoring trust back to the judiciary. Our correspondent, Marvelous Bomanu, has more in this report.
With hard work and dedication comes elevation. And these judicial officers seated here have been elevated to the next level. For many of them and their family members, their joy knows no bounds. One after the other, they approach the presence of the Chief Justice of Nigeria to take their oath of office, pledging to commit themselves to promoting justice and the rule of law.
Congratulations.
You must redouble your pace to catch up with the expectations of the sprawling community of litigants. As judicial officers, you have a defined mandate on earth that you must discharge with unveiled honesty and sincerity.
With the elevation of the judges and justices, many will be hoping that they will expedite justice delivery and help to clear the backlog of cases overwhelming our courts.
We are expecting that there will be expedited delivery of justice. We'll expect more judgments coming out. We expect more rulings coming out.
For quite a while now, the Court of Appeal has been significantly depleted in terms of numbers. So the court have been under a lot of pressures in terms of cases that they have to handle in the recent past. So, and it's been taking a toll on the court as a whole.
Some legal practitioners, while expressing optimism on the crop of judicial officers being elevated, urged them to win back the trust of citizens and ensure the speedy dispensation of justice.
If it comes out in a good time, and the appeals are heard in good time, it would then mean that people will have more confidence in the system. It becomes a system where if you take a matter to, you can anticipate when the matter will be heard and when the matter will be determined.
From now on, you can expect that the quality of judgments will not diminish. It can always be better, and I believe it will be better with the injection of these 22 new justices of the Court of Appeal.
Governors of Oyo, Ogun, Anambra, Kogi states, including the Minister of FCT, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, and the Attorney General of the Federation were all present at the event. A situation, some say, is a political romance with the judiciary.
For the politicians, they are within us. They are amongst us. They are human beings. You can see the way they are flocking here. They are also coming to do what? To also have one or two reports to say, okay, when the judgment is coming, before one or two persons that they've come here to kind of say, well done, congratulations, all those things.
One of the newly elevated judicial officers, Justice Olukayode Adeniyi, urged citizens to always go through judgments of the court before making their opinions.
Some of the times, I believe the public, sometimes because they don't understand the substance of decisions rendered by our courts, so they misinterpret the decisions of the courts.
Many Nigerians will be hoping that with the additional 22 justices added to the Court of Appeal and now increasing the number to 88, cases being determined will get expedited hearing. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomano.
Thank you, Marvelous, for that report. We'll be bringing more updates regarding the justice sector. But let's move away from there to the House of Representatives. There was a heated debate between the head of the House of Representatives Committee on Women Affairs and Social Development, Kafila Togbara, and the Minister of Women Affairs, Uju Ohaneye Kennedy, yesterday. Now, this came as a result of ongoing investigations into corrupt practices in the Ministry of Women Affairs. Now,
it is alleged that there has been a diversion of 1.5 billion meant for contractor payments, as well as other misappropriated funds. The hearing, however, descended into a shouting match, and the committee had to adjourn indefinitely. Take a look for yourselves.
You have deviated because you appropriated for 2023 from the Accountant General's office. Was it released to the account of the Ministry of Women Affairs, yes or no?
Honorable Minister and your team, Mr. DFA, I'm at a loss because fortunately I attended the last meeting, and one of the reasons why we took you on oath was to get the truth from you. And today you have deviated. You have deviated because you did say, yes, there was release of money, and you take instruction from principal, And there and then, I confronted Permanent Secretary. He said he was not in the known. And I still making my statement that you are running the ministry with your minister. Both of you will be
I take exception to that.
Please don't interrupt, honorable member. Don't interrupt.
I take exception to this.
Don't interrupt, honorable member.
Kind of allegations.
Please let her finish.
I am not scared to anybody. I don't want it. She should withdraw that statement she said about me.
Honorable minister, calm down. Honorable minister, calm down.
I'm repeating what I said.
I confronted the Permanent Secretary and the DFA last week, Thursday. I'm still alive talking. You did say it's what they approved to you. I said, Mr. Pamsek, what happened? You are not in the known. I said, look, I was twice commissioner in my state, and the accounting officer is the Permanent Secretary. Please, you people should work with the Permanent Secretary. Didn't I say so, Mr. DFA? I am still saying it, because from the revelations, what's coming out is one-man show. One-man show, you are doing it.
Well, that was quite the heated argument there. But joining us to look at this conversation is politician and educationist Ariola Oluka. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, but first of all, let's look through a list of the allegations being investigated in the Ministry of Women Affairs by House Representatives Committee on Women Affairs and Social Development. And there's diversion of 1.5 million naira funds meant for contractors. There's non-payment of 1.5 billion naira to contractors despite fund release. There's spending 1.5 million naira on vehicle fuel, spending 45 million naira on a New Year party, spending 20 million naira on sanitary pads. Misappropriation of funds appropriated for the African First Ladies Mission. The Minister, Oju Kennedy Ohane, has, of course, denied all allegations. I think the first angle to look at would be that she's being called, she's been asked to clarify all that's been going on. She's, of course, said that it's a trap. So I'd like you to tell us what your thoughts are regarding this. First of all, what does he say about the ministry? Even though, yes, there's innocent until proven guilty, she said it's a trap. But what does this tell you of where we are in terms of administration of these ministries and, you know, what the situation might actually be?
Okay, thank you very much. Let us just put on record that our minister is very passionate, and the way she's going about her job with a lot of passion in it. It could be better and it could be more precise. So the thing about it is that I think both of them, even the House and the chairman, Mr. Bara, the way she addressed the investigation was totally wrong. The way the minister answered the question was totally wrong. It is true that she was trying to clear herself from it, because it was more like an allegation than anything. What I would expect the minister to do, except the House did not send out all these things before they said it there at the place, because what they said is that, oh, she spent so on that. I expected her to have a breakdown of everything that was spent and what it was spent for. That's all they are asking. But I think it's the manner and the way that the things are being asked, and then the bantering that's going on that's the problem. Because it seemed like an allegation. It seems more. It wasn't like as if we were inquiring about it. And you know the thing about it is that there's trust issues everywhere. Trust issues is what I see at play here. She doesn't trust them. They don't trust her. We don't trust ourselves. Nigerians, we don't trust ourselves. They have trust issues. So I think the thing about it is, if you're going to, accountability is very, very important. If they had sent her those things and said, this is the problem we have, this is what we want answers for, I expected her to have been at that briefing with answers to those questions. All right. So that's the only way that I think would have worked out. Yeah.
All right. Of course, this might have looked like a show of shame to many Nigerians. Many times we've seen arguments. First, we did see an argument erupt some years back where the current president, I'm talking about the current president of the Senate, the Speaker, beg your pardon. And then we've also seen something similar occur recently. We did see something happen when it came to Betta Edu, another appointee. Now we're seeing this again. And it seems like it's just about the women. Is it that the position is becoming too tough for some of the ministers to handle? Or are we seeing a case where I'm in and it's time for me to eat my cake and have it? What do you think about these situations?
I beg your pardon on that. I don't think I think we're making more of an issue because it's the women that are concerned. We see the men bantering themselves every day. The other day we saw them throwing chairs. The other day we saw someone being investigated and they asked questions. And at the end of the day, they kind of shut him down and bullied him. And either got suspension. And after he came back. So all these things are just normal, just human nature. And I think it's more to do with Nigerian politics the way it is. There's so much. There is unprofessionalism in every sector. It's just amazing, you know. That's just all it is. I don't think it has anything to do with it being a woman. That is what look at what's the percentage of women that are in government? Do you understand? So every time one woman does something, another one does something, it's picked out and people just go for it. But that's not the case. I don't think it has to do with women. I don't think that, yes, we are emotional beings. But you know, I think when I was reading the thing, I'm watching it, I was thinking to myself, I think what it is that she was going to be saying to herself that, look, I'm not going to accept anything on record here, live, and then they're going to hold it against me if it's not true. You can't ask someone to say yes or no to something that they do not have the full disclosure on. That's not on. It's not on. So I mean, she could have said it in a different way. I think what we need to do as women ourselves is that we go to a bit more training on etiquette and how to answer questions and how to behave in public and how to be professional about the roles that we have. I think we have a lot of work to do in that area as women. But the facts are the facts. Where are the empirical facts? Where show me what it is that you've said. They've just been throwing bad things at her. They have no proof, nothing to say this is what and what and what. If they'd come up with data, then we can say, okay, yes, because I can't even judge. I can't even say, did she do it? Did they not do it? Did they not whatever? Because there's nothing that anybody has said. They've just been throwing words around. So it has nothing to do with women. It will happen if it was a man as well. That's something I want us to be clear about.
And I completely agree with you. I mean, we've seen a number of them, even in the past administration. Whilst we're talking about Sadiq Umar Farouk, we also have Hadi Sirika. There are people who, at the end of the day, what it is that we have structures that encourage people. It would seem that we have structures that encourage people to go there and, you know, cave into corruption, or, like you said, and I agree with you, that there's a trust deficit such that even when there might not have been a case of corruption, there would automatically be an assumption of corruption. Now, let's talk about, you know, what the typical next steps should be regarding this. There has been an allegation. Uju Hannah Kennedy has denied these allegations. And in your response, you said she probably didn't want to be caught on camera. She'd been accused of making some statements on that oath. What would you say should be the proper next steps on how this should, you know, be investigated, and, you know, and should we even expect an end result? I ask this because it's been 6 months since we heard of Betta Edu's case, and we do not know the conclusion to the investigation of that matter. So what should be the next steps, and should we actually expect some explanation?
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, we should expect something. Let me start with that. As a citizen of the Federal Republic, I demand an explanation, and I expect to see it in the public domain where we can all assess it. So the next step, I think, should be that the House, if they do have questions that they want the ministry to answer to, they should please send it to the ministry, asking for a detailed explanation. You cannot say you're investigating something, and then you come out and accuse the person of that thing that you're investigating. When the chairman on the community, Mr. Barra, spoke the first time, she said that, oh, but they are investigating, but there's misappropriation of funds. How can you be investigating? You should have done your investigation and then come out with concrete evidence to say there's misappropriation of funds. You don't put the, what's the word? You don't put the cat before the horse.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not going to work like that. So yes, I know what it is. In Nigeria, we always just make noise. Somebody will faint. Somebody will do whatever. We will not hear the end result. I am looking forward to hearing the end result. And I expect that the minister, once they send her the thing, she will come down with even a simple infographic on how that money was spent, what they did with it. And with the new money that's been allocated, we expect to see a proper infographic telling us how that money is going to be spent. Because all I hear her say all the time is that, oh, you cannot give, if people don't have money, they cannot do anything. We know that, but policies live on after you. Not just the money that you're handing over to people, the keke napep. Are they going to live on after you? We have a deficit in education that needs to be dealt with. How are we going to drive that? Because without that education and the girl child being educated to a certain level, we're going to be back to this square one that we're in. Just to be a waste of $500 billion.
During the Warrant administration, we had heard that corruption was going to be tackled headlong. And now that we've seen President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration as well, corruption was also one of the highlights, especially looking at some of the comments made by the current president. But with instances of ministers being called to the book, for instance, we did have Betta Edu, We also had the Minister of Interior. And here we are again. We have another minister. And it seems like that fight against corruption is not even happening at all. What do you think this would do to the renewed hope regime or the renewed hope statements that were made right from the start?
Okay, thank you very much. So for me, I think this call on corruption is just a call, mouth call. It's not anything. There have to be processes in place. There have to be things that will help accountability. There have to be like a process where we know that so and so would happen if this happens. It's not to say no. So let us say the minister now is held for corruption, which is not the case right now. We don't know until she states her case, and then they sack her like they sack they do. All the whole thing that happened, where did the money pass? Who went through? Blah, 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 all those things. All those other people, are they not going to be held accountable? For as long as we continue to avoid all those things, we're going to go back to the same thing. So everybody's going to come and start crying corruption, corruption. The ones that are accused of corruption, the ones that are being accused of corruption, corruption is just all over. Until they put systems and processes in place. Listen to my words. We would not do anything. We just be coming and shouting about corruption all the time, and then we'll hear nothing about it, and that'll be the end of it. So a process has to be, accountability has to be enshrined into that, all those in sectors, and people's heads have to roll. Yes, I said it, because we're just been shying away from this whole thing and just saying, oh, da. But if from the person that carried the first file to the person that signed it and the process, there's a permanent secretary there, for goodness sake. And they're working together? Isn't there collaboration happening in those in those ministries? She cannot on her own do whatever. She has a political function. The permanent secretary owns the ministry, basically. He owns the ministry. What is happening? I mean, we cannot now use politics to rubbish everything else, all the structures and systems that are being in place in all these ministries, and then get away with it. So I think until the citizens of the Federal Republic of Nigeria demand accountability, that's another strong one. Because we're not demanding, we laugh over it, we make jokes about it. Go online, see people are laughing and say, our turn don't reach. No, that's not what we want to do. So we want a system in place that would hold people accountable all through. And then we would know that we were looking forward to the end result of this. This is not going to die. Citizens of Federal Republic of Nigeria, I challenge you, let this issue not die. We must see the end of it, demand for it, and it will come to pass.
How exactly, what would the shape or the face of demanding for accountability and demanding for transparency, what would it look like? Because so far, some would argue that we've been demanding for these things for years. We've been talking about it, but the effect or the necessary change we're not seeing. So what would that look like? And what are some of the actions that you're seeing now that makes it look like we're taking this as a joke?
With all the banter you see on social media, everybody's taking that as a joke. Nigeria is a cruise. People are laughing over the issue and saying, people should leave her tone as come. I mean, regardless of whether it is right or wrong, or whether she actually did it or not. So this is the same thing. So everybody knows that when you go there, if you are accused of anything or anything happens to you, just wait. After a while, Nigeria will forget about it and move on to the next big news that comes on. That's what has happened when they do, for instance, they moved on to the next big news. So demanding for it is not just talking about it. I know we've been putting out several petitions, and I've been an advocate for petitions and putting out several, but we can now write to the House, to the chairperson, if it does come out. But first of all, we need to wait for the investigation. We need to have concrete evidence that, yes, these things did happen before we take it. We go take the next step. Next step will be writing to the House as citizens of the Federal Republic, getting our signatures on it, demanding that the whole process be looked into, and that everybody that was responsible for it, everybody that partook of it, everybody that shared part of the money, they're all investigated and brought to books.
All right. Does it wonder or does it worry you in particular, and just as it does many Nigerians, that it seems like the ministers do have more access to monies and their spending power seems to be uncontrollable? And I'm still saying this because of the recent issues we've seen in the past 1 year in this current administration. Take, for instance, we've seen the figures that are being alleged to have been spent by the Minister of Women Affairs. And if we look back at the other ones that were also alleged to have been spent by Benga Edu as well, and then we track back and so on and so forth, it seems like it's a recurring thing where ministers can spend bogus sums of money and then nothing will happen. Do you think that it's high time that, possibly there needs to be a foundation where before anybody could spend XYZ amount of money, there needs to be something that needs to be put in place so that we can actually either get facts or possibly put it on the papers and let's know what these monies are being used for. Because like you said, after all this shouting, nothing will happen. Nothing.
Yes. So, like I said before, I said there has to be some kind of system and processes put in place. You know, I was watching her interview and she was boasting that, oh, she's talked to the minister to Edu and he approved and sent the check now. And I'm thinking to myself, who does that? In what country? In what world? Do you understand? How can you do that? How can you over a phone conversation and he says, oh, I must get the documents today and then what kind of bragging rights are those? You know what I mean? So obviously, like you said, they seem to have some kind of power that I don't understand. Some kind of power that there's nobody checking them. There's somebody who have power that they can do what they want to do. That should not happen and that should not occur. So there has to be a way that she's not the only one that would request for that money. She's not the only one that would disburse that money or do it. And then I see her saying, oh, it's all about me. I went there, I did that, I sent this to that. I think to myself, she has a whole ministry with her. Why is she the one doing all this and why is she the one bragging about it? What I see about our minister, like I said to you, passionate woman, we have to commend her for the work she did with the marriages and all that. Commend her for that. So well done, madam. But I see that there's a problem with understanding the processes that need to be in place and understanding your role as a minister. And I mean that with good intentions. So it's either they're not being trained properly or the job description is not being given to them or there's something lacking somewhere. That needs to be looked into. Okay,
I want us to talk about female representation in politics. There's also been a bill that's to create 74 additional seats at the Assembly. It's passed the second reading. And we remember from the last administration, 5 bills referred to as quote-unquote gender bills were kicked out. But it does seem like a number of these bills are being represented in this administration. How do we strengthen more, female participation in politics? And, I don't know if you care to share your thoughts on the creation of 74 additional seats for women.
Okay, so I saw the thing. I think it has gone past the second. I think it's gone the third reading right now. Okay. Commendable as it may be, I still think that we as women, we need to sit together. We need to train ourselves. What we want to do is go there and show capacity. We don't want to go there and just go for the sake of going to taking up those 74 additional seats. We want to go there and show capacity. So I think what we need to be doing right now is investing in ourselves. And I hope part of this money that they're doing for Nigeria for Women project, because Mrs. Edu our minister kept talking about project. There's more to your ministry than projects. I hear you when you say people are hungry, but then the other things that you need to do, there's training that needs to happen. So training, for instance, would be one of the things that I would expect and I would hope that they would do with this money that's coming as well, so that women are empowered and then they have the capacity, and competent enough to take those roles on. Because without that, if we take on those roles and we are not competent, it's going to just be the same story again. It won't make a difference. So whether we have it or not. That would be my thoughts.
And also, are you of the opinion that the standards are not maybe in some measure balanced? I feel, some would argue that the expectations are a lot more, that the stakes are higher, that the judgments can be higher for women in politics.
True that. But then that's why we need to make sure that we're up to the task. Because we're struggling and fighting for a seat. And nobody's going to give it to you on a platter of gold. So that's why I insist that we need to train ourselves. Like, for instance, I've done a lot of trainings as well. There's the School of Policies and Governance that I've gone to, and I encourage most women to go to it. So to learn the ropes and understand what it is that we need to do and understand our function and those things. Because that's what it is, really. Yeah, men are going to, they feel like they're doing us a favor by giving us that 74. So every step of the way, they're going to be watching us. The world's going to be watching us. The media, which is the big problem, so are going to be watching us, unfortunately. So we need to make sure that we are competent and we have the capacity to take on those roles. That's just the way life is. We've always fought for everything, even in the workplace. Women have fought to show that they are just as competent. So it's not going to be any different in politics, I'm afraid. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us, a politician and, of course, educationist, Mrs. Ariola Oloko. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay, let's move to one of the biggest stories as of today. The ECOWAS Community Court of Justice has delivered a landmark judgment ruling that the Federal Republic of Nigeria violated the human rights of 3 individuals. The first is Obianuju Ude, also Perpetual Kamsi, and Dabira Olua Adeyinka in the 2020 ENDSARS protest. The court found Nigeria in violation of multiple articles of African Charter on human and people's rights, including the right to life, security, freedom of expression, assembly and association, and the prohibition of torture.
The court has also ordered the federal government to pay each applicant 2 million naira in compensation for the violations, emphasizing the state's duty to investigate and provide effective remedies for human rights breaches. The violations occurred during the peaceful protest at the Lekki toll gate in Lagos on October 20 and 21, 2020. This morning, we're joined by legal practitioner Mojirayo Ogunlana Nkanga. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me on your show this morning.
All right, we'd like you to share with us an overview of the case and the court's verdict and how you perceive the dispensation of justice in this matter.
Okay, so I just wanted to correct something that is going on around. I think that misconception came from the reporting from maybe somebody from the ECOWAS court, and I think it's an error that anyone can make. Actually, the court found Nigeria in violation of 5 different provisions, or 5 different violations, right? And in all the 5 different violations, for instance, the violation of Article 9, 10, and 11, the court awarded compensation 2 million naira each for the applicants when it found the Nigerian government in breach of its duty to protect the applicants from torture. It went ahead and added 2 million naira each for the applicants. So when it held that there was no access to effective remedy for the applicants, it went for that to compensate the applicants with 2 million naira each. When it said that the applicants were not given an opportunity for reparations, it also granted the applicants compensation 2 million naira each, and then in general damages for everything that they have suffered, the violations, it still granted them 2 million naira each. So they were 2 million naira each at 5 different instances, meaning that each of the applicants was awarded 10 million naira each. So it's a total of 30 million naira each that the court granted to the applicants. And I was in court and I took note of that. Although so I saw that the reporting has been skewed a bit. So I just wanted to correct that. So for I think one of the things that we can say clearly is that the ECOWAS court considered exactly the facts, not only the fact of the case. The ECOWAS court was able to watch our videos, our uncontroverted, evidence before the court. These particular videos went through forensic analysis to prove the genuineness of the videos, and which showed that gunshots were other bullets were shot into the crowd of unarmed civilians who were exercising their right to peaceful demonstration. So the court actually analyzed all this, and the court saw that we had that our allegations were substantiated by the evidence that we provided before the court. And so this was one court that was upholding justice, and this is just what it is for us and for the applicants, and I'm sure for several victims who felt like foolish, for instance, because we all, I think, witnessed that the government denied this consistently, and even when they filed their responses before the court, they continued to deny and even claimed that these unarmed innocent people who were only carrying flags, and we all saw this consistently on TV, that these people were hoodlums. And the court did not find any, they didn't even substantiate with any evidence. No evidence was even provided to court to actually prove that the people that you shot at were hoodlums, because what the court had were peaceful protesters on the streets of Lagos and who converged at the Lekki toll gate. And so that was exactly what the court found against the Nigerian government. And that there's no other way to say this is justice. This is justice, you know? And then, you know, looking at it from the perspective of a legal practitioner, you know, this is one step of closure for the victims or for every other person who is out there who has been unable to find some kind of peace since the moment that this event took place, especially when you were told that what you experienced was not what you experienced. And, you know, and the news went all around. You know, so I think this is justice delivery.
It did.
And I wish that, you know, we could get to that point in our national, jurisprudence where we can say this is justice delivery.
It did. I could tell how excited you are, especially explaining and helping us get a closure on what really took place in the court. Thank you for that, by the way. But now this has happened. Can you say that the youths have eventually been vindicated when we put at par? We do recall the former special advisor to President Muhammadu Buhari, I'm talking about Femi Adesina, who said the gunshots were doctored, that the gunshots were doctored. And then you did have other politicians who did come out to also say that such things never happened. What does this mean, especially for the Court of Justice here in Nigeria? This time, we're not talking about ECOWAS. What does this mean, looking at it in relating what took place, how ECOWAS court has been able to interpret and also brought out the verdict? What does this mean for the court system, the judicial system here in Nigeria?
Okay, so I should tell you one thing. You know, at some point, the Nigerian government said it set up a panel that was led by Justice Okwobi, and we had a very erudite senior advocate of Nigeria on that panel, who also was very fortunate to assess the evidence that was brought before them. Now, one of the things that I love about the ECOWAS court was that, oh yes, Nigeria actually set up a quasi-judicial mechanism to look into the violations, but it is unable to be convinced that this particular quasi-mechanism was independent. And so it felt that it was a questionable issue where a quasi-judiciary mechanism was instituted and there was no implementation of the results or whatever came out from that mechanism. So there was no independence. And of course, that means there was no sincerity. And so for someone who had litigated consistently before the ECOWAS court, despite the challenges, I need to say that there can be challenges when it comes to the enforcement of the judgment of the ECOWAS court. But I see a court that is willing to give justice to the people. A court that will tell the people, this is how it is. You see justices who have vast knowledge of international law. They know what the international human rights standards should be. And they are willing, and without fear or favor, they go ahead to dispense justice the way it should be dispensed. So can I say that the judiciary in Nigeria is completely free from the influence of the executive government, executive government, for instance? Can I say that, boldly? Can I say that confidently? Would a Nigerian who had approached the court at the same time that we did have gotten the kind of judgments that we got? These are questions that even I, as a lawyer, would say, because I have had some successes. Let's not take away from that. For instance, the Abuja rape case, there was a judge who was bold enough at the Federal High Court in Abuja who held that in 6 different cases and awarded compensation and said the Nigerian police had violated the rights of this woman and these women, and of course all the agencies that we sued, and there was no kind of any issue. But when you're looking at the magnitude of what the ENDSARS stood for, and the audacity of the Nigerian government to first call the CNN a lie, for the forensic analysis of the bullets that we all watched, Two, to say that the video, a live streamed video, was doctored. So when you look at the audacity of a government coming out that way, then you look at the kind of experiences that, you know, that followed that period for the judiciary, or prior to that period, where with an ex parte application, the Chief Justice of Nigeria was removed from his seat. So you would understand the complications, that we may not have been very, you know, confident that we would have gotten the same kind of judgments coming from our national court. So the ECOWAS court has kept its standard, and we as Nigerians, as media, we must continue to protect the integrity of the ECOWAS court.
Still speaking about the integrity of the ECOWAS court. Still speaking about the integrity of the ECOWAS court, there are those who have expressed some level of concern that the ECOWAS, as a regional bloc, the chairman of the ECOWAS regional bloc is the current president of Nigeria, where this harm was done, and of course, who was a part of the party that was in office, or the party that was in leadership when this wrong occurred. So there are those who express concerns about the ability or the implementation of this court judgment, the ECOWAS court judgment. Is that something to be worried about?
Okay, so that is something that I want us to constantly put in the back of our minds. Even the president of that particular court has called out state governments and actually, well, how do I say, appeal to them to comply and implement the judgments that come from the court. That has been a challenge. I think I mentioned that earlier. It is a challenge in the sense that you see, for instance, recently the AGF came out and gave a kind of statement which seemed to be that, oh, the ECOWAS court just gives judgments that may not be in tally with the position of Nigeria or something. There was that kind of communication, which of course shows that the government is still reluctant in accepting to be bound by the decisions of the court. But interestingly, each of these governments, let's say, all signed the ECOWAS treaty, where they all, how do I say, all, I don't want to use the word swore, they all chose to be bound by the ECOWAS treaty, by the rules of the ECOWAS court, and they owe the obligation under that ECOWAS treaty to implement every judgment that comes from the court. So while we may, as lawyers or as the citizens, may be looking at the fact that, oh, you can't easily go and enforce the judgment of the ECOWAS court, I think the heat should be taken to the government.
All right.
We should be calling out the government, each and every one of the governments. That is the duty of citizens and the media. We should be calling out the government that you signed. Nobody put a gun to your head to sign to a particular treaty or to sign or establish a court of the economic community and then refuse to be bound by it. If you had signed onto that particular revised treaty, then it is your duty as a government to also abide by whatever decision comes from that court. So this is what media should be partnering with the Nigerian public to hold the Nigerian government, to hold West African governments in general bound, to hold them accountable.
We've run out. We need to move on from this conversation as quickly as possible. In 10 seconds, do you think that now that the judgment has been given, that the lives of these people, for example, the life of Obianuju, popularly known as DJ Switch, do you think she can maybe have her life returned to her in some measure, the freedom that she expressed or experienced in Nigeria before the ENDSARS 2020 protest, as quickly as possible?
Yes, this is a justification for her. This judgment is a justification. This judgment shows that our client was, we say it's a vindication, sorry. He has shown that she's vindicated because she, for instance, expressed that she sat down and listened to these judgments and then she felt some kind of peace in her heart because it made her feel validated that whatever she had reported was exactly the way it came about. And I think that is a closure for her in one aspect. And and it's another way for her to freely move, for instance. But we should never forget that there is a reality in Nigeria. We know that the level of injustice is very, very high. And I'm speaking formed the bar. I'm speaking as a legal practitioner because I've seen injustice. I've seen manifest injustice in this country, even in Abuja. So we cannot take away that reality. And that reality can be in two folds. I will tell you one. During the ENDSARS protest,
unfortunately,
we saw people
we need
who
to
were
go
paid
now.
500 naira.
We need to go now. Ojirayo,
Thank you,
Ogulana
Lizzie.
Gaga, we need to leave now. Thank you so much. We hope to have you again, as this is an ongoing conversation because we must need to keep holding the government to account, because they've of course signed to be a part of this. So thank you so much for joining us this morning. All right, and let's take you through a recap of the conversations we have had this morning, and then share with you what's coming up next. Reps and women minister clash over 1.5 billion naira diverted funds. We had a guest join us to talk about this, and also we've had the conversation. We've just concluded the conversation with Ojirola. Federal government violated ENDSARS protesters' rights, according to the ECOWAS court. CGN swears in 22 appeal court justices. Let's take you through what's coming up next on Breakfast Central.
Coming up next on Breakfast Central, Supreme Court set to rule on local government autonomy. We'll talk about that story. We'll have the front pages of the newspapers as well coming up right about now. And then find out what Nigerians are saying here on Breakfast Central. And thank you for staying with us here on Breakfast Central. It's time for you to be part of the conversation. This is the front pages where we take a look at these stories, making the headlines on the front page of the various newspapers from here in Nigeria. Well, joining us this morning is DME Saka, Public Affairs Analyst. Good to have you here. Good morning. Good morning. I guess we have a lot to talk about. So many issues. First off, I hope you're not arguing with anybody, like what we saw.
No.
House of.
No, I'm not.
You're not.
I'm a
Because I
gentle
think
guy.
Olive was arguing earlier on, so I wanted to be sure that.
Olive will just extend the olive branch.
Yeah.
That's why I'm wearing olive green.
Wow. Okay, that's why I will take my leave.
Hey, leave me.
No, you can't. But we'll be glad. It's just, so it's going to be Olive and I will banter out.
Yes, go on with the front page.
3 is a crowd.
2 is a crowd.
Wow.
Then you have the callers, the viewers who would definitely call in. Anyway,
wow.
Let's get into the papers. Let's start off with the Punch. Let's see what it says. It says federal government projects massive food price crash in January. Yes, I saw that story, and people kept asking which country or what country are you talking about? New measures will address high food costs, says Agriculture Minister. Imported food commodities will be subjected to recommended retail price, according to federal government. Okay. Labour meets Tinubu, insists on 250,000 naira minimum wage. Another one, local government fund. Supreme Court decides federal government suit against governors today. And I think I'm going to say this, I don't want to be a predictor or predictor of bad or good news, but I think it's going to go to the local government. I think it's going to go their way.
There's been a lot of judgments in that regard, and it's always been going to the local government. Maybe a new addition to it.
I feel that way. Reps panel quizzes minister alleges 1.5 billion naira diversion. And then let's take one last story here. Tinubu swears in 8 permanent secretaries. Many more are coming in. Many more permanent secretaries. Anyway, that's fine. One last story for me. A businessman bags life jail for raping daughter in Lagos. Oof. Very sad. Let's go to the Daily Independent now, and let's see what Daily Independent has in store as well.
On the front page of the Daily Independent, the big story there, bread beyond reach, citizens lament. Thankfully, the Holy Book says, man shall not live by bread alone. Okay, that was another paper. I'll come back to that one, and I must use that line again. ENDSARS protest. ECOWAS court slams federal government, finds it guilty of rights violations. Hardship. Tinubu has closed doors to ministers, National Assembly members, according to Ndume. PDP warns embattled lawmakers not to disrupt peace in Rivers. Tinubu, minimum wage. Tinubu meets labor leaders today. That minimum wage conversation is already getting exhausting at this point. It just feels like we're going in circles and circles. INEC confirms Edozie Njoku as APGA national chair. Be fair, upright, CGN urges 21 inaugurated appeal court justices. Marwa promotes 5,042 NDLEA officers, honors 15 commands, and 70 personnel. Reports on Samoa agreement. Federal government angry, says it was designed to cause confusion in the land. Tinubu swears in new set of permanent secretaries. Livestock Ministry won't stop herders farmers clashes. Northern youth say it will swell cost of governance. We've started preparing our 2025 budget, according to Governor Fubara. It's the energy for me. I saw the clip when he said he has moved on from 2024. If you like, people can say what you are saying. Court can say what he's saying. He's not representing any, okay, I wanted to use one word, any budget. He has moved on to 2025. Has he even implemented the 2024 budget that he has moved on from? Please, let's move on from the Daily Independent and go to the next newspaper.
All right, so I'm going to do this. Before we go to the next paper, let's bring in our analyst, David Saka, so we can actually take a look at the two papers that were discussed as well. So let's start off with, I think my first question.
Okay,
yeah, go on. No, you go on.
No, I wanted him to react to Governor Fubara saying he has moved on. He's already in 2025.
Well, I've been saying this, and the two persons I will blame for what is happening in Rivers State is the president, commander-in-chief, and his national security advisor, for them considering the thoughts of coming up with political solutions or solutions to the crisis in Rivers State.
But they say it was playing a fatherly role now.
With fatherly. Please, I used to. I can't bite you on set. Don't worry. We'll talk about that later. But for me, that was placing a man above all institutions in the country, and that was wrong. And that emboldened the party in this conflict. And whether we like it or not, it can be interpreted as a tacit support or approval of either the conduct or misconduct of one man. I probably don't want to get it. When the people of Rivers State really want governance and not politics year in, year out, they probably know what to do. The election will come up and they will decide who will give them governance and not who's going to play politics in 4-8 years. That's for me from Fubara. The people of Rivers State and the governments of Rivers State, with whatever they're doing, lay their beds with tons, and they're probably going to bleed in it.
It's a tough situation. It's either coming back, and we see ourselves talking about the story today.
And Judicial is not helping matters, the conflicting pronouncements, and I think the law is clear. You should know what the law states. You shouldn't be, and it's just it's also with no intent to cast aspersion or bring the integrity of the bench to disrepute, but they need to do more in earning the confidence of Nigerians. That's why when you see conflicting pronouncements on an issue, on a single matter like this, you now start wondering, are you guys the dictates of politicians or sentiments and what have you? I don't know. We need to overhaul our system, or else we have a system collapse.
All right, let's talk about the major one, the one that concerns every single Nigerian now. 250,000.
Is it that one or the food?
On it. Well, food as well. But whether we like it or not, even if there's food, the purchasing power of that food is also a major problem. So 250,000 naira is what the NLC is going to request for today, and they're meeting with the president. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think if the Labour wants to step into that meeting with Mr. President, they should go on YouTube and dig up a short clip of Mr. President while he was running for office, and tell him, put the clip to him to
watch.
Yeah, that he said we'll reduce the purchasing power of the people, we'll slow down the economy, reduce the purchasing power of the people, and expand the tax rates. And that's exactly what he's doing. Apparently, when they put that video to him, he needs to explain to them, maybe that's why he's still insisting on 62,000 naira. And in line with reducing the purchasing power of the people, it's about devaluation of your currency. So they should tell him that, yes, you've done your policies, you've executed your political campaigns and promises. So this should follow suit. And that will make them get the commitment from Mr. President. And to the issue of food importation, I met some guys that told me that the reason why even the price of beans shot up was because bulk of the supply from Burkina Faso couldn't get into the country. That's how bad it is for us as a nation. And I like the attempt at the collective intelligence of Nigerians by the First Lady trying to start, gardening and saying everybody should embrace farming. I just laugh. I think they just throw things at us, dehumanizing us, not even thinking we want the decency to be treated like a
But
human.
was anything wrong? I mean,
Please, for crying out loud, who brought this onto that ship on us? Why are you making it look as if Nigerians are lazy, they don't want to go to the farm, or why must we go to the farm? The simple question is, should Tinubu in the farm? Or is he on the farm? No, let's get realistic. You don't make people, you don't pee on our face and tell us it's raining. It's insensitive. And what is the policy of this government to show there's food security? They're probably going to open up the borders. You're probably going to see more of fresh produce from Benin Republic and Togo and what have you. That's how bad we've come to as a nation. Takes us back into the issue of the livestock ministry. That was just an improved version of Ruga. Please, we're talking about the cost of governance. You're still creating a new ministry. And when you have some ghost workers as ministers, I can mention names. When last have you read anything about Oyetola?
As the Minister of Blue Economy.
What can you even talk about the blue economy? When last did the blue economy made the news? You have ghost workers as ministers. You are still trying to create ministers. Who knows who's going to be this minister? Maybe the chairman of Mieti Allah. And you created, and they're still demanding for more.
Well, the president also swore in 8 permanent secretaries yesterday. So there seems to be more employment, especially in the ministry. But I get your point. I get your point.
Now, and a quick one from me from Punch, and I think I shared my thought before. I think there's a need for Nigerians to call the House of Representatives to order. There are 2 agencies or 2 institutions that are guilty of this thing is the House of Reps, the National Assembly, and the EFCC. The way they go at people with allegations, and you could see them, even they as much as take away the presumption of innocence from you, and they commit you to media trial, and conviction in public court. And you look, let's backtrack. The only probe that has gotten us anywhere was the subsidy probe under the President Goodluck Jonathan that got us conviction. The rest is just jamboree. They just come to public, slander people, bully them into. They did it to Aruna Ote. He made allegations at some people and what have you. Opuzodema is now the governor of Imo State. They did the same thing to the MD of NDDC, while Akpabio was the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs. He made some damning allegations. The lady's credentials and what have you has been destroyed. Where is Akpabio now? The Senate President. You're doing this to the Minister of Women Affairs. So we're not holding bail for her. But why? The last week or 2 weeks ago, a Comptroller General of Customs slumped and died because probably you subject these guys to intense pressure and what have you. With total disregard to either their you are might not be responsible for their state of health, but their reputation, their families, and what have you. This should stop. If you think you have enough probe against somebody, probably let the police do its job or the DSS do the job. If you want to borrow from US, then let them take them to court. Enough of coming and ridiculing and rubbishing and slandering people, subjecting them to intense pressure for whatsoever reason. You saw some members of House of Representatives talking and speaking as if they had relationship with contractors. Like speaking, if a contractor, there's the industrial court, that you can settle your labor disputes. Why should you not take it upon yourself as House of Representatives and messing people up, discrediting their whatever, under the clerk of oversight function?
Without standing on the toes of anyone, they've also said that Nigerians have been asking for transparency now. So they are giving you the transparency. That's why they are putting it in public domain.
Physician heal thyself. Can every member of House of Rep give us a complete breakdown of the constituency allowance, how it's been expended? People they issue award the contracts to. Is that not a breach of procurement act? Most of them is about just awarding contracts to themselves or their cronies and what have you. I'm not making excuses for grafts in departments and MDAs. No, I'm not. But please, this should stop. This ridiculosity should stop. The governance is serious business, not as matters or you want to embrace the media every time to make it look as if you're working. Let the House of Reps start probing itself.
Anyway, let's take a look at the front page of Daily Independent, which we looked at earlier on. That front page, let's take a look at one of the stories there. Tinubu has closed doors to ministers, NAS members, NAS members, according to Ndume. It says Tinubu has closed doors to ministers and National Assembly members, meaning that he's no longer welcoming them. Let them go and do their job. What's your take on that?
We opened the door by late 2025 or first quarter of 2026 for the election. So, I don't know why, if you think you have any business with Mr. President and you want to stake on public issues on issue of governance, you can summon into the National Assembly. You shouldn't be White House. Asu Rock is Asu Rock. The National Assembly is National Assembly. Like you said on the street, stay on your lane now. I think you guys have business together. Call him. If you think he has business, you guys are not member of the Federal Executive Council. And if he's a member of the Federal Executive Council that believes they don't have access to their principal, and that is hindering their performances or performance, they should resign. It's not a do or die affair. If some people can work under such conditions, fine. If they are not complaining, so who are you to complain on their behalf? That's how I say it. I'm not cutting the president some slacks. I'm not any slack. I'm not doing. Neither am I attacking the National Assembly or Senator Alain Dume. But the bottom line is, if you think there's a need for interaction, there are official channels to get that done. If you want to communicate things to Mr. President, there's the office of the SGF. There's the chief of staff. Why must you see the president? The president is not your. It's not like a secondary school and is your head boy. You're sharing the same dormitory. Or your school father. No, he's not. President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Not president of ministers or presidents or senators.
Okay. Let's look at another paper now very quickly. Let's take a look at the Vanguard.
Yes.
Olive.
On the front page of the Vanguard newspaper, will regulate price of imported foodstuffs according to federal government. Conflicting court orders, CJN vows to deal with errant judges. Basic education, Nigeria needs 194,876 more teachers and 1,107,852 classrooms according to UBEC. We also have here, oil marketers short stations in Lagos as panic buying continues. That's not good. ENDSARS protest, ECOWAS court finds federal guilty of rights violations. Minimum wage, Tinubu meets organized labor today. EFCC witness admits Emefiele's wife not beneficiary of CBN contract. And now let's move to the Daily Trust. On the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper, the final paper, because I had to use my line here. Bread beyond reach, citizens lament. Thankfully, the Holy Book says, man shall not live by bread alone. Bakeries shut down due to rising cost of production. Nigerians seek relatively cheaper foods. Government must act now, says Master Bakers. Thugs, residents clash in Rano over Sanusi's emissary. Borno government reintegrates 8,490 repentant Boko Haram members. I think we'll begin our conversation there. Conflicting court orders, CJN vows to deal with errant judges. Samoa reports federal government will await position of media ombudsman. NERC reels out new sanctions for discos. Women minister reps in shouting match over alleged diversion of 1.5 billion naira. Tinubu has been fenced off by forces, according to Ndume. So let's start with Borno government reintegrating 8,490 repentant Boko Haram members. So the reintegration of people who were previously known as terrorists is something that has been applauded in some quarters, but criticized by many. The recent comparison I've had in this matter would be, I had a conversation where it was placed vis-a-vis the way that Nnamdi Kanu has been held by the government. They said Nnamdi Kanu isn't even a terrorist, yet he's not been allowed to, even though there have been several court judgments asking, saying that he should be let go, he should be granted bail, not let go, that he had still been held in custody. But whereas our government constantly is reintegrating people who have been known to actually be terrorists over and over again, forgiving them. So what are your thoughts, and what would you say to those who use this as an argument in favor of Nnamdi Kanu?
You could say probably my reaction to I'm trying to control my emotions. And some of us that have friends that have been killed by these terrorists, you probably want to frown at this, and you're probably looking at the facility of this proposal, this policy. Initially there was a time I was frontal in you know, accusing and, you know, eating hard on the Nigerian army for coming up with this policy. We call it Operation Safe Corridor. The only thing that got the army involved is because it's a militarized zone and army is the one policing. That's why you find army involved. It must be put out there that it's a policy of former President Muhammadu Buhari, implemented and executed by the Ministry of Defense. And I cite instances, and I probably want to educate people. Firstly, I don't think America, the United States of America, has ever granted anybody held in Guantanamo Bay pardon. There are still people being held in Guantanamo Bay against, you know, whatever you can think of, against, you know, acceptable human values. And I don't see, I would say this to you, there is no terrorist anywhere in the world that can be radicalized. And for this, to educate these people and for them to have an idea of what they're dealing with, because I guess a lot of them don't know anything beyond their environment. I probably was asked them to dig up a Hollywood flick series called Homeland. By the time you watch season 1, episode 1 to 5, you probably understand that you are just wasting your time. The idea shouldn't be thought of in the first place. The idea is inhumane. The idea is, and you see, sometimes you find somebody making ridiculous submission that they should be given foreign scholarships. To do what?
To maybe start a life.
You see, we're on the global platform, so the choice of words must be very civil. Absolutely. I'm battling emotions there because I remember there was a time I was in Kaduna, and I walked into an office, and I was with an Air Force personnel and an OS or the rank, and the next thing the guy was talking, I was like, whatever, blah 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 blah. I said his brother was his classmate. Our brother, sorry, was his classmate. Was killed in Borno by Boko Haram. I've seen. You want to tell people because and I keep saying it, and I'll keep saying it. The disservice to this nation by the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari was the de-escalation or the classification of Boko Haram as bandits in Northwest and what have you. I don't tell people in Zamfara, I don't tell people in Kaduna that have lost their loved ones, that those guys have been radicalized and reintegrated to the society which they've wreaked havoc. Does it make any sense to you? There's a saying in Yoruba that a hawk never stops, never abandons stealing, never stops stealing to happen. Why is it that in any case they look at, okay, they release somebody from prison, maybe went to jail for rape, and there's a rape in the locality, the first suspect they go to is the same person. It's just like you've killed somebody, you've told the whole world that yes, you've crossed the threshold and you can always still kill. Now, what are you de-radicalizing them for? From what? And if you look at what they call de-radicalization, it's just pampering. Because for you to de-radicalize somebody, you first have to break the person. When you break the person's will, the person now listens to your dictates. These guys were not broken. These guys were just like you're negotiating with them.
The challenge is, according to the story, they are being integrated back into society. And a lot of them, we hear, would be given jobs so they can actually start off their life again. But we've asked you questions in this conversation. They can start their lives again. What about the ones they end?
You see, I think if you want to integrate them back into the society, there should be a process. And you know you can integrate them into society because jail, prisons, correctional centers is within the society. Let them have their time in court. Because sentence them to jail, let them be integrated into society while in jail. Well, and you see, the downside of it is it's everywhere. You're telling somebody in the north that, well, you could take up criminality, become a Boko Haram terrorist or a bandit by classification, And in 3-4 years, if you are not okay, the government will come to you, beg you. We probably create a ministry for repentant Boko Haram. I mean, to get back to the society. Just like you have in Lagos, the kids are hardly going to school. You say 14-year-old guy that is now what we call an Agbero. Why did she be in school is on the street, threatening to break the wiper of a bus because he hasn't paid. And he looks, and what can you tell him? Because he sees his seniors
doing it.
No, it's seniors now they're
in positions.
They're in positions. They have unfiltered access to people in public offices, building houses in Ikoyi. That's how much democracy, with all sense of respect, has committed our values as a nation.
Well, I don't know, but I think we've said enough, and the points have definitely been made clear. As we wrap up the papers this morning, just quickly, let's let our viewers know that you can also be part of the conversation by letting us know your thoughts on some of these stories, especially with the fact that Daily Trust says bread beyond reach. Bread is becoming a very, very golden food, especially here in Nigeria. People are struggling to actually buy now.
What is not expensive? What is not even expensive?
Everything. The
even water.
5,000.
The cost of flour apparently just got increased. So
Again.
I hear that the number of bakeries are already starting to shut down. I cannot believe, I couldn't believe that the day will come when I'll be buying bread for 2,000 naira. But that's what it was. I'm expecting that it would increase now.
I took a tour to a flour mill in Akwa Ibom under Hodom Emmanuel. By the time I met the manager, the guy on said, we don't have enough wheat to produce flour in Nigeria. And we go as far as importing from Ukraine. That's why the Ukraine crisis shut up a lot of things in the world. Even when we tried the cassava alternative, that because of the processing of farmers, it has a lot of impurities and it couldn't meet up with. And definitely, even when they told farmers in Nigeria to just produce for local production, Nigerian market, they couldn't meet up to a tenth of the demand.
Sad, very sad. Thank you so much for joining us on the papers.
Yeah, but a quick one from me. EFCC, with what they did to Emefiele, now a witness admitted that the Emefiele's wife is now, you see, just like I've said, people should just change their handshakes. Stop messing up people's reputation. Stop media trial. Unfair.
Stop media trial. That's what, I mean, you've highlighted here in the course of the front pages. And I hope that the authorities watching would start to think of another way, a conventional way of ensuring that they can actually get matters solved. Thanks for staying with us here on Breakfast Central, away from the papers, the front pages. Let's go to another conversation. Well, personally, I hope Olive came to work fasting today because in solidarity with the Nigerian Union of Local Government Employees, by the way, yes, as the Supreme Court is actually set to make a landmark decision on local government autonomy in Nigeria. That will be tomorrow, July 11. Now, let's also tell you something that you actually really need to know, that the court will determine whether local government councils will definitely operate independently or remain under the control of state governors.
The Attorney General of the Federation, AGF, and the Minister of Justice, Prince Lateef Fagbemi, SAN, filed a lawsuit on behalf of the federal government against the 36 states seeking an order to stop governors from arbitrarily dissolving democratically elected local government executives. We're joined this morning by legal practitioner Ibukun Fasomi. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us. Talk to us about the current, what currently exists in terms of when we have conversations about the local government as the third tier of government. So talk to us about what the current realities are and, you know, what it should be.
Good morning, and good morning, viewers at home. It is sad and very unfortunate that what we have as a nation in terms of local government administration is far from the intent and the beliefs and the values of the Constitution as we currently have it. Section 7 of the Constitution.
Right.
Autonomy and particularly when you get to the schedule where government.
Unfortunately, we seem to have
actually a shadow of particular provisions of the Constitution. Let us take, for instance, a local government as we have do anything without a kind of approval, so to speak, from the state governments. They have become appendages, they have become stupid, they have become very toothless. They could not even do anything. But I think with what we are going to have today, because the Attorney General of the Federation had approached the court for interpretation of some of the section, and also to ensure that local government is given full autonomy. And the purpose of that is to ensure that the dividends of democracy are driven directly to the beds and homes of the actually voted and surrender their rights under social contract theory for the constitution that we currently operate. So it is very, very important for Nigerians to understand that the judgment of today that we are going to have is going to really bring out the intendment of the constitution and what a local government autonomy should be like. Let me also say further that before now, as at 1999 in this country, we had a semblance of what a local government should be like in terms of administration, in terms of fiscal control, in terms of implementation of projects. But what it is like a local government has become a place where governors now feast. So we, as Nigerians, we must believe and know that in the interest of democracy. The current situation we have in terms of local government administration is like a rape. It is forced. It is not. Nigerians are not consenting to it, and even the people who are there at the ends of affairs local government are not also happy. So I want to say that Nigerians should be very expectant today, and despite the fact that the state had actually gone to court to defend the action of the federal government, some opposed it, some defended it. We are going to see the cacophony of ideas and in the Supreme Court very soon, and it's the judgment day.
All right, I do recall that in my introduction, I did mix up the dates. Today is 12th, today is 11, tomorrow is 12, so likely at the end of today and tomorrow, we'll get a clarity on what the local government autonomy will actually be looking forward to. But I'm also told that we do have challenges with your network, and hopefully, we hope that we can get that sorted out possibly before the end of the show and have you react to some of the questions in which we would love to ask. But in the meantime, if you are looking forward to get the results as well, to get the final verdict on what this autonomy would be like, well, do what, stick around to News Central. If we cannot bring every single thing to you, then later on in our subsequent news bulletin, you will definitely get more information on that. Well, let's quickly move to our next story. The House of Representatives Joint Committee on Cement Price Increase has threatened to arrest Dangote Cement management. Why? Well, they're saying if they fail to appear at the next hearing, the committee had issued a 14-day ultimatum to cement manufacturers to appear before it and explain the arbitrary price increase.
At a public hearing on Tuesday, Dangote Cement officials were absent, prompting the committee to mandate the Cement Manufacturers Association of Nigeria and the Central Bank of Nigeria to appear before it in 2 weeks. The committee chairman, Jonathan Gbefwi, accused cement manufacturers of making life difficult for Nigerians and warned that a warrant of arrest would be issued if Dangote Cement fails to comply.
And talking about Dangote management failing to appear before it, tomorrow would be a good time to further analyze and talk about this story. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We'll take a deeper look into this story tomorrow and see what the price of cement has been in the past, what it's been now, why Dangote has been called, and the recent statements also made by Dangote himself about the economy and most importantly how it has affected business. We'll go for a quick break. We'll come back with more stories. Stay with us.
Welcome back. It's time for us to find out what Nigerians are saying about one of the biggest stories in the past few days. Nollywood movie maker, filmmaker, and producer and director Tony Abraham has faced backlash because of allegations of detaining a social media user. Now, there have been several tweets that have detailed what has happened, different sides of the stories. There have been accusations of her having detained a social media user and the mother. Now, she's come out to debunk these claims, even with a counter tweet as well. And she's also come out to address this via an Instagram live video. Let's take a look first at the Instagram live video, and then we'll have a look at some of the tweets and hear different sides of the argument.
I said I was not going to say anything anymore, but there are some things that you can't accuse me wrongly, and you expect me not to say something. I would not, because they may not need at me. I will never arrest anybody's mother. I never arrested anyone's mother. So everybody knew that it's a different thing when you commit a crime. It's a different thing when you are a criminal, when you do something bad, and people are dragging it, and you know that this is time for you to pay for the crime you committed. I have not committed any crime. I have only exercised my democratic rights. And they keep bullying me. I came on social media. I came to beg everybody to leave me the hell alone. Shefebo, anytime bully me, emi go bi mo se wa, emi go ti fe ku. Emi go fe ku, but kin to ku. Shefebo, mo ready ati ku bi mo ye wa, mo fe ku. I want to die. But before I die, a lot of you bullies will die together. I have kept quiet. Bi mo se wa, you guys have pushed me to the wall. Mo ti di were. I want to die. I want to die. I wish to die. The way I am, I want to die. Because you guys have pushed me to the wall.
Quite a very disturbing video there where she's expressed her frustration. Now, if you go back to the drama with Toyin Abraham, it began when she publicly expressed her intention to support President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. She did put out a tweet during the elections or a while ago stating that she had had a conversation with the now president, and he'd reeled out the renewed hope plans that he'd had for Nigerians. And, they came for her, asking her, what plans did he renew for you? If you want to support him with your chest and stop going through the corners. It was just a lot of backlash that she has received since then that has spiraled into many things, including a certain tweet where someone, made reference to her child being passing. I don't want to use the exact words. But we have the tweet. I believe we have the tweet where her son was, insulted. Now, there was a thread where someone had asked about the renewed hope plan, saying, oh, Toyin Abraham, can you please share with us the renewed hope plans that President Bola Tinubu has shared with you? So she says, you asked me in a polite way, so I will definitely answer you. Of course, I was told and promised good governance and happiness for everyone, and which I believe. If things didn't go well, why do I have to be the one to suffer for it? Because I remember I voted Jonathan and I was bullied. Then somebody responds to her saying, so now you then promise good governance on behalf of Nigeria. Oh, Nigeria, say, your son go by soon, which is, of course, referring to the death of her child. Now, nobody in any way, shape, or form encourages this level of bullying. It was regarded as bullying, but what the key issue then came to was what constitutes defamation, what constitutes, insults. There was the argument on social media about what constitutes insult and what constitutes defamation. A young man was allegedly arrested, and the police were also blamed. They were accused of being used as an instrument to bully Nigerian citizens, and that if Toyin had a case against this, that she should have taken the case, she should have reported to the police, and then they should have gone through the legal process. Now, before that, I want us to also take a look at some of the reactions that Nigerians have had regarding this. The turnout hasn't been good. A number of people have started to report her movies. They've sent emails to Netflix, asking Netflix, of course, to boycott her movies. There are those who have spoken for her. There are those who have spoken against her. Peter Ibe Abuchi says, Toyin Abraham is not even my issue. Can we please go back to Peter Ibe? Says, Toyin Abraham is not my issue. And, all right. Peter Ibe Abuchi, Toyin Abraham is not even my issue. The fact that the Nigerian police can be used by anyone with money as a tool for oppression is really disappointing. Same story with Arisco. Very terrible unit. That's what Peter Ibe Abuchi says. Now, the next tweet was asking that Nefertiti says, Toyin Abraham is a busybody. The APC defame Peter Obi every day. They defame everybody, including those who criticize Asiwaju. We read and ignore, but Toyin must show her rascality. After all, she's Asiwaju baby. Unites the young man with his parents and put an end to tyranny. Sarah Ibrahim says, Toyin Abraham, thank you for finally releasing Big Ayo. Now that he's free, Kindly tell us the ideas Tinubu shared with you. A lot of people voted because you told them you heard his ideas. All we want to know are the ideas because up until now, we don't know what they are. Hashtag free Ayo. Ayo is the person who was allegedly detained by the police. And the next tweet is from Sarah. Let's move away from this. This was a long thread. Let's move on to another tweet, still talking about this. Ugo tweet says, don't report her Twitter page. Report her movies on Netflix and write the worst reviews. Draft letters about how she bullies Nigerians and send to Netflix. Wreak havoc on her. Hashtag free Ayo. This, no way. Maiwa David says, dear Netflix Niger, there's an ongoing cyber attack on one of Nigeria's famous artists, Tony Abraham. Some groups of youths are bullying her, defaming her character and trying to silence her from pursuing her constitutional rights. Except if your organization is that which supports bullying, that's when you should take down her movies. But know that millions of other Nigerian youths are observing closely to what will become of her products in your capacity. And one of the major conversations was, like I said again, the difference between an insult and defamation. And I'm going to put up a tweet that sort of highlights when it's an insult and when it's defamation. So please let's project the final tweet. And that tweet says, it's from Brian Dennis. He says, as someone that is currently in court for defamation, let me explain the difference. If you accuse someone of something immoral, that isn't a crime. It's civil defamation. If you accuse someone of something illegal, then it's criminal defamation. You are a womanizer and a playboy who sleeps with anything under skirt is a civil defamation. You are a fraudster, it's a criminal defamation. Make everybody just stay careful. There's also another tweet of somebody who said that that Tony Abraham collected money and her husband went to go and do hair transplants for her husband. It's just really messy. We plan to have a conversation about it. We have reached out to Tony Abraham, and this is just another opportunity to officially once again publicly reach out to Tony Abraham to join us on the show to share her side of the story. We'd like to hear from her. We'd like to hear from Uncle Ayo. We also would like to hear from the police. The police has been accused as being a tool for inflicting oppression and bullying the masses. And we want to hear from all sides of the divide. And as well looking at the legal angle to it. What rights are there and what remedies, should be there. But that's all that we have for you this morning. Thank you for joining us on Breakfast Central. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. I am Olive Emodi.
All right, I'm Joe Hansen. Thank you so much for joining us. See you again tomorrow morning, bright and early.